to. I wanted to spend a little bit of time analyzing the Scott Ritter FBI raid and legally what occurred and what may occur, and some other aspects of that. In addition, there is the Iranian situation with Israel, where a response is yet to be deployed against Israel, which I think is a very interesting strategy by Iran taking its time. It is somewhat debilitating to the Israelis to be standing, waiting, and on a high alert, and the Iranians are just nodding and smiling, saying, "Oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming." And then we've got Russia and Ukraine, where the Ukrainians made this mad dash up into Russia and have bombed and killed and shot a bunch of civilians, war crimes, crimes against humanity, terrorism, using weapons from the United States and NATO. And I think it's, honestly, it occurred to me, I think this is a media money-making operation, because the Western media has made money off of, breaking news, Ukraine invades Russia, tune in next hour. And then, oh, we've got, tune in the following hour, because we've got more photographs and more videos and all this stuff coming. And they seem to be using these little battle of the bulge moments to run up advertising and make some money. CNN, MSNBC, and Big Pharma and Pfizer, the ones that are behind those shows, about Ukraine, getting near Moscow, and all of it is lies. It's all been stunted and counteracted. And then they are also looking to blow up the Zaporozhye nuclear plant, which I've said for a long, long time. So Ukraine morphing into a terrorist state, doing terrorist activities and things like that. And then, of course, we've got Britain and Europe and the anti-migration, riots that seem to be setting us up for another Cromwellian civil war in England. If you recall, in 1640, the English had their civil war. Oliver Cromwell stood up, a farmer, very much like Braveheart, if you will, William Wallace in Braveheart. So you've got an earthy, blue-collar farmer type guy that rises up. And he was actually a squire, but he led a rebellion, led an English civil war, not out of rebellion, but because the freedom of the people and the property rights of the people and the entire purpose for England was being undermined by a king that was being influenced by his Catholic wife, and then was engaging in all sorts of actions of treason. That civil war overthrew the parliament, overthrew the king, and reestablished a new England. We're close to that.
I'm going to disagree on that.
Let me hand it to you and get your feedback. Go ahead.
Well, starting with Cromwell, I'm going to disagree with that one, because King Charles was the one who threw the Jew bankers out of England. And Cromwell was completely owned and financed by the Jew bankers out of Amsterdam. And they funded him to make banking safe for England again. And that's why the city of London got established. So I will disagree with your account of history there just a little bit.
Sure.
Cromwell was not a good guy, and is any king perfect? No, none of them are. You always have complaints about them. But what Cromwell did is made all of England and the UK subservient to the Jewish bankers, and that is why the city of London is the financial center of the world, or at least of the Western world right now, and it's being challenged by the BRICS. But that's the first thing. But let's go back to Scott Ritter, where you started. Scott has been very proactive and very vocal, giving what I think is common sense appraisals of what the situation is between Russia and Ukraine. You and I are on the same page on this, I believe, in that the U.S. started this. They wanted to take Ukraine out of the Russian orbit, so they toppled the duly elected government of Ukraine, and they committed a coup and installed their Poroshenko at first, and now Zelensky. But they threw Yanukovych out, and they upset the apple cart. And since then, that was in 2014, I guess, is when that happened. See, I was there in 2004 during the Orange Revolution, and that's when Yanukovych was defeated in an election. And I'm trying to remember the other guy's name who led the Orange Revolution, but that was another color revolution.
It was the guy with the bad complexion due to alleged poisoning.
Yes, yes. I'm trying to remember his name. It'll come.
And Yanukovych won the first round of that election.
Yes,
he did. They forced second counting, and that's when he lost, allegedly.
And then, Yanukovych came back in and won an election a few years later. And things were going along fine, but the Orange Revolution was turned back.
Yeah.
Because the people who came in with the Orange Revolution, Yulia Tymoshenko and others, were so vilely corrupt, and they're all Jews. And it's Ukraine is not a Jewish country, but there is a heavy Jew influence there from the Khazar roots go very deep. Let's just say that. But the U.S. started this, trying to take Ukraine out of the Russian orbit. Now, that would be like, China going to Canada and trying to take Canada out of the U.S. British orbit. It's essentially the same thing. I mean, you look at the Canadians and you look at Americans, and by golly, you can't tell us apart. Well, you look at the Ukrainians and you look at the Russians, and by golly, I can't tell them apart. They look alike. They speak the same language. They're on the same page. They eat the same food. They do all the same stuff. And so that is what the U.S. attempted to do. And Putin just said no. After they'd killed 14,000 Russian-speaking people in the eastern provinces, oblasts they're called, he said, no, enough's enough. And now with this invasion into Russia, Putin and Medvedev have both come out. They're on the same page and said, we are going to take back all of Ukraine. And they're going to go for it. And I think Putin should have done this some time ago. I remember I predicted, a month and a half back that, give it a few weeks and they're going to be going into Odessa, because Odessa is the lifeline to the rest of the world. That's all their sea traffic. Without Odessa, Ukraine is landlocked, and they have to depend on highways and railroads. Well, highways and railroads can be bombed and stopped, and you can really bring the country to its knees rather quickly. Whereas if they have the port open, then that's a different story. It's a much harder thing. So I really think I would look for Russia to go after Odessa. I'm telling you that is it. And then they fortify Crimea's flank. There's no way to get anything else. It has to be a seaward assault on Crimea if they want to take it back. And I just don't think that the West has got the wherewithal to do it, because everything that would go into the Black Sea to support such an assault would have to go through the Bosphorus.
Well, see, don't you think they need to declare Odessa independent republic as they did Lugansk and Donetsk, and at least draw their military forces to Odessa, so you spread them thin? They're not all focused in Kharkov. They're not focused in Lugansk or Donetsk or the Donbass area. Now, suddenly, Odessa, even if you publish PSYOP posters and newsletters and flyers, the Republic of Odessa is rising. Join here to be a parliamentarian or to have a seat in the new republic or something. Odessa being a separate entity because it's a separate Russian city. That's how you peel it away. And yes, you have to have special forces and others embedded on the ground to assassinate and kill any of the responding Ukrainian capture teams, that are going around dragging people off the street and throwing them into, being recruited. You have to kill those guys and blow up those trucks, as they're kind of doing. They're not doing it as animatedly as I would have done it, and I've said this is how they should do it. But don't you think Odessa needs to declare an independence, or at least they need to start popping off these distraction operations to begin to have Zelensky and these other fools looking in every direction? It's like whack-a-mole. You don't just pop up one mole from the same little hole. You have to pop up whole whack-a-moles in every direction to get them looking.
I get it. Well, here's the problem Zelensky has, and that is he's got 30 to 40,000 men inside Russia right now. And so, where is he going to get the resources to retain Odessa if that happens? Now, on the other side of the coin, right behind Zelensky, the EU has got 800,000 men in arms ready to go right behind them into Russia. So, we are reaching a real tipping point in this conflict here. And I do not believe that the EU, with US backing, has got the bandwidth to take Russia out. I just don't believe
Of
it.
course they don't. But look, do you think you just named a number of 800,000 men in the EU or NATO or whatever? Qualify that. Where are they coming from? What men are these? Do you really think that they are going to obey an order and go fight Russia or go invade somewhere in Finland or somewhere around Ukraine or in Belarus? Do you think any European, NATO, Britain, Frenchmen, they want to do that. They're ready to do that. They will do that. I don't think so.
No. We're getting pushback already. We're hearing that the Germans don't want to fund any more anything else for Ukraine. None of these countries want to fund anything else for Ukraine. This whole war with Ukraine that the U.S. started has hurt Germany. They cost them their energy supply.
They blew up, Mike. They blew up their own energy supply.
I know they did. That's exactly what they committed an act of war against a NATO ally.
Well, against themselves. Schultz did this to his own people. He should be executed for treason.
He should. He should. And it's a complex thing, but the West is playing it so poorly. They can't get out of their own way. I mean, these people who run our foreign policy and run our military policy are fucking stupid. They're just stupid. They don't get it. They don't know how to fight a war. They haven't won a war since World War II, and it's beyond imagination that they could be so naive in their approach to war fighting. But
let me can I play the Ritter video and then we can comment on that?
Sure. How much you want to play? With 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Let's go for like 5 minutes or so. I just kind of want to go a little bit on what happened to him and what he did and responded to, which I do not think he did the right thing in response, how he responded to these people. But this is important to get a feeling for what they did, how they did it, what they said, and his reaction. Here we go.
I just showed up. Two FBI agents showed up at my door, knocked on it. I went outside, and they said they wanted to talk to me. I said, about what? And they said, we have a lot of questions and concerns about your online activity. I said, really? Like what? And they said, well, it relates to the Foreign Agent Registration Act. I said, you want to talk about it? I'm not letting you in my house. We can sit out here and talk if you want to. They said, well, actually, we're coming in your house. And they showed me the search warrant. And then suddenly the whole area swarms, and they brought out a SWAT team in full tactical gear. And, they're like, we got to clear your house. And I said, guys, I got 4 dogs behind the door that are worried. And you're not opening this door going in with a SWAT team because you're not shooting my dogs. And so what's going to happen is put a gun against my head, but I'm going in that house and I'm moving my damn dogs out to the backyard. Then you can do whatever you want. I don't care. And so they were cool. I mean, look, I have to get to the FBI guys. They're very calm, very professional, very courteous the entire time. Clearly executing orders that they've been given. And the search warrant allowed them to come in and seize my electronic devices. I mean, it's very specific about what they can and can't do. So they could seize electronic devices, cell phones, computer storage, electronic, things of that nature.
Or surely focused on electronic. Knowing the way they are.
They stole everything. I mean, I'm calling them out right now. You guys know what you took. They took gifts that were given to me of a non-electronic nature. They took documents beyond the ones that they ended up. They took my entire WMD archive. When I was a weapons inspector in Iraq, the receipts that allowed me to stare down the United States and all the other liars who were trying to go to war on Iraq based upon their lies about WMDs. It wasn't just my word that helped me prevail. It was the fact that I had done the job for 7 years and I had 7 years worth of receipts. None of it's classified. All of it is considered sensitive by the United States, but none of it's classified. You can't give classified information to the United Nations. But they found that down in my basement. They seized that whole thing, 24 boxes, 80,000 pages. And they, I said, you got to give it back, guys. You can't have this. They said, well, we have to review it. I said, okay, but you have to give it back. It's not classified. So they took that, but then they took other things. They took documents out of my dresser, not my dresser, but my cabinet here. They took documents out of my desk. And like I said, they took gifts, things that weren't electronic in nature. I don't know what they think they're doing. I mean, just be honest and put it on the damn receipt, but the receipt doesn't show any of the stuff that's missing. So it's some sort of stupid game they're playing here, but it is what it is. They indicated there was about Foreign Agent Registration Act, and two FBI agents spent 5 hours questioning me. And I never asked for a lawyer because I haven't committed a crime. I told them. I said, just tell me what you're looking for. You don't have to do this. Tell me what you're looking for, and I'll take you to it. Tell me what you want to know, and I'll let you know. I got nothing to hide here. But they're concerned. It came down to they're concerned about my relationship with the Russian government, and that somehow I'm taking direction from the Russian government. They're telling me what to do, what to say. There's some sort of, But the other thing is, based upon the folders that they had this thick, where they had all of my emails, all of my texts, all of my communication. I said, you guys know everything. I mean, everything that's on that computer to see.
Your texts. Did they have a search warrant to surveil you that preceded this raid on your house?
They didn't tell me that. They just showed me the texts that they had printed out. Clearly, they admitted that they had been monitoring me for years. I said, how long has this been going on? They said, well, we've been looking at you for years. I said, okay, I sort of suspect that. I don't care. I have nothing to hide. But so what clearly is the problem is that there's a pattern of behavior on my part. Going to Russia apparently is not allowed. Meeting with the Russian ambassador is not allowed. It is, of course, there's nothing illegal about it, but under their book, it's not allowed. And writing articles critical of the United States policy on Russia is not allowed. And when you put all three of those together in their minds, or in the minds of the Department of Justice, or somebody who complained to the Department of Justice, they're saying, well, you're an agent of Russia. And I said, well, what is the specific example? Show me one thing that you say, this is how we know. They couldn't do it. So it's, in my opinion, and people agree with me, that they're looking for covert communications, that they seize my electronics because they believe embedded in my electronics are some sort of covert communications capability that was outside what they did. Or they took advantage of being in my home and planted bugs throughout the house. We don't know. We don't care because I've done nothing wrong. I mean, it's a pain in the, I gotta watch my language. It's a pain in the neck to my family. I mean, this is, it's disconcerting to my wife to have FBI agents show up at her work and start asking her questions. It's disconcerting to my friends who have FBI agents showing up and asking them questions. It's disconcerting to my colleagues who have FBI agents. The whole idea, it's a smear campaign. Basically, they're creating the impression that I somehow work for the Russian government, and therefore what I write, what I say can't be trusted. And, I respectfully told them that they're wrong, and I hope they can clarify this. What we do strongly believe is, first of all, I know they don't have any evidence of me working with the Russian government because I never have worked with or for or on behalf of the Russian government, so they can't have any evidence of that. But we know that the U.S. government can convict on circumstantial evidence. But what's clear is this, and this is what I've told everybody who are telling me to be afraid, be very afraid. I'm not. I'll tell you why. If they had a cognizable case against me, meaning they had enough circumstantial evidence that they could go to a grand jury and get that ham sandwich indicted, they would have done that. And so when they showed up with the search warrant, they would have arrested me and led me away in handcuffs, processed me, and prepared the trial. They didn't do that. They came to my house, they issued a search warrant, and normally in FARA cases, they issue letters of inquiry. And this is the other thing. You see, if this was simply, Scott, you may have done something here that we think crossed the line, they issue a letter of inquiry. They think I have covert communications. They think there's something going on that they can't trust me to be honest about. So that's why they did the raid on the house. They will find nothing because there is nothing. But normally, like I said, a fair thing, it's not a crime unless if I am unwilling to register. Well, I can't register because I haven't done anything wrong, so I'm not going to register.
You're not going to register because you're not a foreign agent. A foreign agent takes direction
That's right.
from a foreign power. That's what the statute defines it as.
Yeah, but they interpret direction as me having a conversation. For instance, if I initiate a conversation with Anatoly Antonov about anything, let's say we're talking about arms control, and then we walk away, and people say, well, what did Antonov tell you? Well, he told me about the negotiating history between him and Rose Guttenmüller and how she lied to him. And then I write an article about that. I took direction from the Russians to write this, smearing America. I'm like, no, guys, first of all, I'm a journalist, so get the hell out of my business. And this is an absolute. The FBI and the Department of Justice have no right whatsoever to define journalism and journalistic practices. You know, I have editors at RT. I'm an outside contributing journalist to RT on occasion. It's not a lot. And I have editors who receive my material, and we have an editorial relationship. They don't direct me. Sometimes they correct me. Sometimes they ask follow-on questions, as editors are wont to do. But that's not direction. That's not, that doesn't fit the statute. The Department of Justice is literally out to lunch on this one. Out to lunch.
So your beef, of course, is not with the men and women that were in your house, although we know they took far more than the search warrant authorized them. Your beef is with their bosses in the DOJ, responding probably to political pressure because of what you've said about Israel and about Ukraine and about Russia, started this investigation.
Somebody went to a judge with an affidavit or affidavits. This is according to the search warrant, that they went to the judge and they said, in accordance with the affidavits that we have submitted, we have reason to believe that in the house of Scott Ritter is a computer, is a phone, and that if we gain access to the computer and the phone, it will demonstrate this, something. That's the affidavit. I don't have it because it's a sealed affidavit. They didn't give it to me, and they won't talk to me about it. But somebody did that, and here's where I have the problem. That in order to do that, you have to have it's beyond simply doing an analysis. This is politically motivated because an analysis of the available facts could never support probable cause. Somebody had to spin this thing out of control, go wacko and exaggerate and whatever.
Here's why I think you're 100% correct. Not because you're my friend and I like you and we work together, but because of the facts in this case. If they were interested only in the content, I'm holding up my iPhone, in the contents of your electronic devices, they can get that very easily by serving a search warrant or a simple subpoena from a grand jury to the telecom or computer service provider without involving you at all. It's because they think, since they don't know you, that they can intimidate you by having 40 people show up your house or rip it apart and take what they want. That's what leads me to believe this is politically motivated and totally misguided. A, the government is not supposed to interfere with freedom of speech. B, the government is not allowed to chill the freedom of speech. C, the government doesn't know Scott Ritter because they would know that he can't be intimidated. Who do you think pushed this? Somebody that doesn't like what you're saying about Israel and Hamas, or somebody who doesn't like what you're saying about Russia and Ukraine?
I think this is Russia and Ukraine. I know there's a lot of people out there playing the Israel and Hamas angle, but no, this is driven by the National Security Division, which has a these are the same people that invented Operation Crossfire Hurricane targeting Donald Trump back in 2016. Same division. I just want to point that out. These are the guys who lied about Michael Flynn. These are the guys who lied about Donald Trump. These are the guys who created Christopher Steele and fabricated all that testimony to.
Do you think they lied to you? Because unfortunately, the law is so skewed that the FBI can lie to us, but if we lie to them, it's a crime. Do you think they lied to you in the 5 hours of interrogation?
It's possible. It's possible. I'm sorry, I shouldn't read your comments. There's somebody saying Scott Ritter's afraid of Israel. You don't even know me, pal. I'm not afraid.
All right. I think that's enough. Mike, I'll let you comment before I give a comment. Go ahead.
Let me go ahead and point out one thing that Scott didn't get yet. Israel and Ukraine are connected. They are two paths done by the same people, by the same organization. And he's missing that point. This is Judea International. This is the Khazarian mafia at work. And Ukraine and Israel are connected, and he missed that. So anything he says about Ukraine affects Israel. Anything about Israel affects Ukraine. And that is something that needs to be pointed out very, very, very clearly, that those two are joined at the hip because they're driven by the same people, the same the same powerful Jews, if you will.
Well, first of all, in a critical mode, and I'm going to be careful with my words because I don't want to help bad guys in any way, but when they come to his front door and knock on the door, the only thing he should have said is, who are you? Gentlemen, I don't answer any questions without my attorney present. Do you have a business card? Do you have a business card? What's your name? Who's your office? What office are you at, or why are you here? And he should have had his wife call the police, get a sheriff's deputy down here, the sheriff down here immediately, and start to record this on your phone. And I'm recording it on my phone. And to be interrogated for 5 hours is a suicidal action. And I mean, that is Ritter at his most stupid. Because I know how these things go, Mike. You know how these things go.
No, that was Ritter being scared shitless and thinking, well, I have nothing to hide. I'm just going to help. I'm going to talk. I'm going to cooperate. No, you cooperate in the presence of your legal counsel.
Right.
You don't cooperate ad lib. You just don't wing it because
they say, well, you said you had a white tie on this day and you didn't.
One misstatement and he lied to the FBI. And now he's got a felony charge.
That's right.
Look, I want to be very careful. Be very careful here. I'll cooperate with you any way I can, but I have to have my attorney present because the penalties, if I make a misstatement and perceive it as a lie to you, are so severe. I don't want to suffer that. So
that's right.
Please allow me, the privilege of having my attorney present while I cooperate. When I cooperate.
Yes, and no, the affidavit or the document, the search warrant, they are only entitled to search and take what is on that search warrant. So books or letters, no, that's robbery. And sheriff, I want you to stop them from stealing from my house, or you're conspiring with them to violate my rights. They're taking things they don't have a right to. No, just because you have an FBI badge does not mean you get to take my book of Winnie the Pooh. In case there's secret notes written in lemon juice that only urine will expose or something like that. No. And, I've seen this, and I like Scott. I've interviewed him before. But this level of, they're very kind, they're very nice, they're very patient.
That's very professional. Their job is to gain his trust. Their job is to gain his trust, get him to open up and keep him talking. The longer they can keep him talking, the greater his chances of making a mistake.
That's right. That's right, Mike.
And he probably has done nothing wrong. But let's branch this out a little bit because we got another situation here with Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. And let me just finish this one part before him, though. Because they have called RT a foreign agent and because they have kicked RT out of the United States, saying that it is a branch of the Russian government, and because that branch of the Russian government gives Scott Ritter $5 a month, that alone is the backbone of their legal case that they will now file in court. And say Scott Ritter is an employee of the Russian government because he's an employee of RT, which we've already designated at the State Department as a part of the Russian government. And the judge is going to go, yes. and they are going to prosecute him using this because they've got nothing to lose. And if they set a precedent for shutting up Ritter and throwing him in jail, Mike, guess what? They set a precedent for everybody else. And that's going to scare these people like Phil Giraldi and Maloof and Timbuktu and Johnny Golightly and anybody else that writes and takes 25
has
cents.
A chilling effect. And then
that's a very chilling effect. So that's what they're going to do. They are going to arrest him. They're going to prosecute him, and they're going to tell him take a plea deal, or else we're going to wrap false statements on your 5-hour testimony that we're not going to tell you now what you lied about, like they did to Flynn. That's what they charged Michael Flynn with. They're going to do that to Ritter. So it's now a clusterfuck because he treated them like decent human beings and had a conversation saying, I've got nothing to hide. I've been down that rodeo path before, Mike. I know what they do and why they do it. You do too. So I'll leave it at that, but I can predict what's going to happen. It's very sad, but go ahead. You were going to comment on Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard, they're doing the same thing to her. Here was an honorably served lieutenant colonel in the U.S. military, congresswoman, presidential candidate, and they've got her on a quiet skies, and they've got, 15, 18 people following her every time she gets on an airplane. She's on a terrorist watch list. Really? I mean, I put that Vindman guy from Ukraine who was serving in the military on a terrorist watch list before I put Tulsi Gabbard on one.
Yes.
And these are things that they're distorting the letter and spirit of the law in order to compromise and to cripple their political adversaries. That's what they're doing. And taxpayer dollars, I mean, they have a bomb sniffing dog on Tulsi Gabbard. They've got 4 air marshals. They've got all this other stuff. I mean, taxpayers pay for this. This is not cheap to do. It's got to cost them a couple $100,000 every time she takes some puddle jumper flight. I mean, it's got to be expensive, but they don't care because it's not their money. It's our money. They don't work for it. We do. And it's frightening to what our government is doing. So here's my advice for every patriot out there. Okay. If you're a patriot, and you post things on Facebook, and you send text to your friends, and you have phone conversations with your friends about, the situation in Israel is bad. We shouldn't be in Ukraine. If you voice your honest opinion, which you are allowed to have under the First Amendment, and you're allowed to have privacy in your person and papers and belongings, but they're violating that there is no constitution that our government honors right now. They do not honor the Bill of Rights. So if you are a patriot, if you've got a tax bill due, pay it. If you've got if you're on probation from a DWI, don't drink and drive. I mean, live your life like a Boy Scout. I mean, you really get all of your affairs in order. Have every I dotted, every T crossed on every aspect of your life. And if you don't have it done, if you're behind on your bills, work out a payment plan. If you owe taxes to the IRS, work out a payment plan. Find some way to do something to where you're compliant and working through things. Because if they can't find anything on it, and this is where the big danger comes in. If they can't find something on you, they'll plant things. They'll put they want his electronic devices. They may have child porn on them now because he's got a sexual conviction on it. They may have planted something on there for him. They may plant drugs in your car. So you're driving down the road. You know your car is clean. You haven't done nothing there, but you get pulled over, and the next thing you know, hey, what's this? We found this package, this little envelope here. What is this?
That's exactly what they did to James and Joanne Moriarty, who escaped Libya after the CIA and NATO and all of that bombed Libya into oblivion. They escaped by a Russian ship that got them out of the country, and they returned to the United States, where Glenn Beck and the rest of the CIA tried to bury them. Their car was pulled over after they had taken it into a mechanic to have a tire or something done. and their car was pulled over after they went to the mechanic, and the policeman was shining his light in the wheel well or under the dash, saying on his cell phone, I'm looking, but I can't see it. There's nothing here. I'm looking. I'm looking. So he was obviously in communication with someone that had planted or knew someone that had planted something that would compromise the Moriartys with something illegal. And it had been taken out by the mechanic that had worked on their car, probably drugs or money or something like that.
Well, let me finish my comment on that. Is what I would advise people to do is annually go get a drug test. Go get drug tested, because if they plant drugs on you and you've got a 5-year history of drug tests that everything has turned out clean, you say, screw you. I'm not a drug user. I've got a 5-year history here. Everything came back clean. Everything came back honest. Not just urinalysis, but hair analysis too, because hair analysis goes back in time. It doesn't purge itself from the system.
Yeah.
And I learned that when I was going through my divorce, and my ex-wife accused me of being an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I said, "I'm not. That's not me. I mean, that's a bitter, angry woman." So they did that, and the judge ordered me 10 weeks of alcohol testing. I had to randomly, so I had to go through that, and then the psychologist I was seeing for my psych evaluation said, "Go get a hair test, because your hair is this long." That shows that you either had or had no drugs in your system for however long it takes that hair to dry, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is.
Yep.
So if you've got that and no drug usage in there, you're free and clear. You're clean. Maybe go get a drug test every quarter, depending how short your hair is. But get it done, and that way, if they plant something on you, you're held harmless. You've got nothing in there to find, and you can say, "Well, wait a minute, Your Honor. This wherever they got this from, it wasn't mine. I've got drug tests here dating back historically that there's never been any drug. I don't use drugs. It's not my issue."
Yeah. Well, let's also know this was probably done by Lindsey Graham and some other neocon Zionists in Congress who he's called out, who have sworn affidavits. Now, what about the chain of custody? Who's made this affidavit? Who's made this allegation that I'm a Russian agent or an agent of a foreign power? Who's made that? Because it's a lie. It's false. It's a false report being made to you. And this person who has sworn this out needs to be held to account. They need to be judged by, the judge in the court to examine it. Who do you think was behind this, Mike?
I think Judea International. I think whoever the big money oligarchs who are funding, the ultra Zionists. And I have to criticize the Republican Party. The Republican Party seems to be pretty well Zionist owned. Mm-hmm. Their whole Slavish dedication to Israel and turning a blind eye to the genocide that is going on really diminishes them, in my opinion. And the Republicans have been the go along to get along party. They've not offered any resistance to this Democrat communist agenda for decades. They always try to, let's reach a compromise. Let's reach a compromise. And they always end up rolling over. They never make any progress in the direction that's going to serve the American people. It's always progress that's going to serve the globalist Jewish interest. And so it's time to replace these people. They have the power of incumbency, and they're very well funded. And I've said many times, 96% of the time, the candidate with the most money wins. And you look at Cori Bush. Now, I'm not a fan of Cori Bush. Trust me, I'm not. She's a little bit out there, a little bit loony, but she's right on the Palestine issue, and she's right on her position on the Israel issue. And so AIPAC came in and dumped $9 million to an opponent nobody heard of, and they threw her out, and they got her booted out of there. She lost her primary. And so this is who we're fighting. It's Lindsey Graham is just a tool. He's just a paid shill that works for these guys. I can't stand the guy. He sickens me. But he's just a paid tool. I mean, you look at him. He's blonde hair. He's white. He's blue-eyed.
He's a homosexual. He's a homosexual. Everybody knows.
But he looks as Anglo-Saxon Protestant as they get. He looks the part of a white guy. And that's what the Jews want as their front man.
Well, he's passing legislation to bring the United States into a military conflict with Iran, if there's an engagement or something with Israel and Iran. Lindsey Graham has said he's going to file legislation to bring U.S. military intervention and all that. That's an act of war, Lindsey. You don't get to do that. And yet, Mike, we're down that lane.
Well, Scott, again, we don't have a dog in this fight. I mean, everybody says Israel's our ally. They're our friend. They're not our ally. They're undermining our democratic republic here by influencing our politicians. They're buying them off, and they're using American citizens who are Jewish, maybe dual citizens, to do it. And so it doesn't look like it's foreign interference, but it absolutely is foreign interference. And what do we care if Israel and Iran get into a war? What has Israel done for us except compromise our government and commit espionage against our government and our people? They are not an ally. They are the most vicious enemy you could ever have. Who was it? Was it Cicero who said, I can withstand an army outside the gates, but one traitor inside the gates? I'm paraphrasing it. Mm-hmm. But it's something, and we have all these traitors in our government, all of them. And they've done the long march. I mean, the Frankfurt School was very successful in their mission when they came to the U.S. in 1933. And that is, they corrupted academia. So all of our kids are getting a socialist, communist, Marxist education now, in one way or the other. They're not getting a free market capitalist education. They're not being taught meaningful things. I mean, black lesbian dance studies is not a viable degree. We can't produce, where student loans are out of control because they created these degrees that anybody can get, anybody can pass, that are worthless. It's like, what do you say to? Well, let me I got a little joke here for you. What do you say to a bachelor's degree in anthropology to get their attention?
Only Democrats will hire you.
No. Hey, waiter.
Well, the issue is we are dealing with the most seriously mentally retarded generation in the history of the United States, and the rest of the country, the rest of the world, is not as retarded. Now, shifting a little bit, I want to look at Britain because we haven't talked about that. We wanted to talk about that last week, but I want to talk about it this week. I want to spend some time on that. The British civil wars that are brewing, the British citizenry that are rising up in Manchester, Liverpool, and other parts of the country because of the grooming gangs that these Pakistani Muslim pieces of shit have been doing, raping girls and doing all sorts of stuff, which I'm not even putting into the tent of Islam, because I don't consider that Islamic. I've been to Iran. I know the people. I know Syria. I know it's not Islamic at all. But anyone claiming that they have an Islamic right to rape white little girls, that son of a bitch needs to be killed in the most painful way imaginable, in my book. But putting that aside, the British people are rising up. Now, there's some disturbing things that are also being brought up. As Syrian girl has pointed out, this Tommy Robinson guy is a Zionist or on the payroll of Zionists, or there's something there you can elaborate on. So there's a dancing Israeli celebration that this is happening. So there's obviously a Jewish Zionist connection to the amplification or incendiary qualities of this outrage and these getting these white British people standing up and enraged and attacking police, which you can understand why. But I want to carve out a middle road, Mike, a middle direction, because we don't want to go the way of a Zionist agenda, whatever that may be, and you can elaborate what you think that is, pulling us into this Muslim versus, white Christian person civil war to cultivate a hatred for Iran and lead Britain and America in this Iranian war. We don't want to go that way, but at the same time, we need to rise up and preserve the British culture from this brown Islamic Africanization that kills little girls with knives, like has just happened. Britain needs to be British and purged, but it's also gone beyond that. It's moved beyond kind of a resurrection in a way. They have to at this point abandon ship and create a new ship. They have to retreat from some of these areas that have become Indian, Pakistani ghettos, African ghettos. There comes a point of diminishing returns. Why do I want to stand and fight for a ghetto when I can pack my bags and move to some other area or some other country? How do you see this British rising, and what is the middle course where you both arouse the British, if they're even arousable, to preserve their country and their culture, and push back on these corrupt politicians that have been bringing all these migrants, but at the same time not to fall into this Zionist agenda?
Well, that is the Zionist agenda, is to get the Christians and the Muslims to fight, to kill each other, and wipe as many on both sides out as they can. So the Zionists and the Christians need to come to that conclusion. Now, how do you deal with the Muslims that are in there? And that is, you segregate them and you put them into their own ghettos, and you cut them off. You don't allow any food. You cut off the power supply. You cut off the water supply. So they're locked in there, and you put them in a containment siege, if you will, okay, where you don't allow them in, you don't allow them out, and you say, look, we got a boat over here, it's loaded up. If you want on it, we'll take you back to Pakistan. Aircraft too. We can fly back to Pakistan, back to Bangladesh, back to Congo, wherever it is you come from. You don't have to stay here and starve and freeze, but you're not going to get the free benefits. You're not going to have your rent paid. You're not going to get your meals subsidized. You're not going to get any of that anymore. You're cut off from your benefits, and we'll give you a ride home, and you hope that most of them take it. And that's the first approach, is what you do. But by containing them and then isolating them from the necessities of life, you will force them to consider that offer very seriously. And of course, some are going to want to fight. They're going to want to come out. They're going to want to, brawl and mix it up and kill white guys. But I'll say it before. I said it before. I'll say it again. You can't maintain a first world country and a first world culture with a third world population, and that's what this is. I mean, Islam is stuck in the 7th century. They haven't progressed. The fact that women have to wear the hijabs and have to dress all black, and they beat their women, all this nonsense and stuff. That it's not compatible with the Western way, where Swedish girls used to be able to go to the beach and go topless, and boy, it was a delight. They're afraid to do it now because the Muslim, they're asking for it. She wants me to rape her. Look at her. She's beautiful. Of course I'm going to rape her. It doesn't work. It's not a compatible. The whole concept of integration has failed. And we as people need to segregate ourselves into our own tribes. Yes. And as a Caucasian tribe, we need to stick with other Caucasians. As Muslims and Browns, they need to stick with Muslims and Browns. Blacks need to stay with blacks. Everybody is happier. Everybody gets along. It is a peaceful existence. It's not a warlike existence. The problem is...
May I add one thing?
Sure.
That does not mean complete isolation and no contact with the other tribes. That in fact means the opposite. By tribalization, you make interchange, intertrade, intervisitate. You make the mixing, in a temporary and even on a certain superficial level, all the safer and more pleasant, because you're not integrating, you're passing through, right? It's not about cutting off and not having any contact or no words or nothing. No, it's simply by tribalization, you allow the interchanges between the tribes to be all the more, respectful and pleasant and positive.
Well, and commerce is a benefit for all.
Yes.
But here's the problem. You look at the blacks in Africa and how they live. I mean, South Africa is a good example. They were handed a first world country, and they've quickly taken it in 20, 25 years to a third world status. The blacks know they can't do it on their own. So they want to be in the white countries. They want to live the life that a Brit or a German or a U.S. citizen lives. But they can't do it for themselves. They don't have the means. They don't have the capability. They don't have the intellectual bandwidth. They don't have the other moral bandwidth to do it, to live the life we live. So they invade our territories and they try to live how they are in our world. And it results in these rapes and these murders and this violence. And white people have had enough. I mean, we're done. We're done with this experiment, this failed experiment. And it really wasn't an experiment. It was deliberate destruction. If you read the Kalergi plan, this is what they want to do. They wanted to depopulate Europe of white people and make it into a Negroid, Mongoloid race. And that's what this is all about. Again, sponsored by our Jewish benefactors here who treat us all so well. And we need to understand, our people need to understand that the Jews are out to destroy us and to destroy our people, destroy our way of life. And you look at those videos of Gaza and how cruel and how ruthless. I mean, utterly cruel. You look at the Nuremberg trials and what this guy Mike King was on Ron Partaine's show, Untold History Channel, did something on the Kennedy curse. I highly recommend you watch it because it really spells out how there were people on both sides in England and in the U.S. trying to keep World War II from breaking out. But the Jews in the city of London were the ones who wanted the war for their agenda. And that's how they gained power. And that's how they gained control over the Western world. Because of that, they paint themselves as the victims when they are the perpetrators. Mm-hmm. And so, I recommend it. Untold History Channel. It's on Rumble someplace. Ron Partain, the guy's name is Mike King. And it's the Kennedy curse is what it's called. It's a good one. But, the problem that the Muslims have and the problem that the blacks have, the problem that we as white Caucasians have is the same. There is an enemy of mankind, an enemy of humanity that is dictating things behind the scenes. And these are these Jewish oligarchs, these billionaires who can topple governments, who can fund their private armies, who can do all these things. When I was in Syria and, the Syrian Minister of Justice shared with me the list of every known terrorist in Syria. And that's valuable information. But the common thing is the jihadi in the field is never the problem. It's the guy who's paying him, the guy who's buying his meals, who's buying his ammunition, buying his gas for his Toyota Hilux. And that's the guy who's the real terrorist. And every time that guy turns out to be a Jew. And Muammar Gaddafi had it right. He said, if you want to end all terrorism and all war on the world, drop a 50 megaton atomic bomb on the city of London and it will stop instantly. And I believe that Gaddafi had it right.
So. Well, let me ask about Russia and what you in the last segment here. What are your thoughts of what is going to happen moving forward? Well, both with Russia and this Ukraine stepping into was it Kharkov and doing all this stuff. How is this going to roll with Russia, and then also with Israel and Iran? How do you see this unfolding in the next week? Go ahead, Mike.
Well, back to your earlier point about Iran saying, "Oh, don't worry, it's coming, it's coming." You know how hard it is for a military force to be on 24/7.
Absolutely.
After about 2 or 3 weeks of high alert like that, suddenly their high alert's not so high anymore because they're exhausted, they're tired, they're bored.
Their families are pissed off.
Yeah, everything. I mean, and so their high alert's not so high. But I think it's my opinion that Russia may have had a come to Jesus meeting with Iran and said, look, just hold off on this. And if they come after you, then we'll back you 100%. Because when I was in Syria, I met with the Iranians, I met with the Russians, and the common theme here is that they had to defend Damascus because If Damascus falls, they're in Tehran. Tehran falls, they're in Moscow. And so that is how they view it. That is why Iran and Moscow have aligned behind Syria to help them and to keep the war that the West has been waging against them at bay. So they understand, the Russian, let's call it the axis of resistance, understands the threat. They understand everything we're talking about here, about who's behind this. They know the U.S. is a vassal puppet to Israel right now. Mm-hmm. They know it. We're 35 trillion in debt. All they have to do to get our attention is cut off the money supply, and we're going to have riots in the street in about 4 days. That's all it takes. And so our politicians are going to do anything and everything they're directed to do by our Israeli masters. And so I don't want to see American, young men and women, our soldiers, go to fight a war for Israel. Screw that. It was bad enough in Iraq. It was even worse in Afghanistan. Those wars did not benefit the U.S. They were totally fabricated. And we know Israel was behind 9/11, not Afghanistan and not Iraq. Israel is the perpetrator. It was not these other countries. But yet, Israel used us to destroy Iraq and create pandemonium, unrest in the whole area. Same with Libya, same with Syria. And the Israelis thrive on chaos because no one can mount any resistance to their agenda while they're all in chaos like that. So that's why they do it. And it's time for the world to unite against Israel and the Western banking system that it represents. Now, the United States, if we didn't have Israeli interference in our governmental affairs, if we honestly had an American, pro-American government that was doing the right thing for its people, for our people, according to the Constitution, we would be prosperous, we would be peaceful. I don't care if we're the most powerful country on the world. I don't want to be the most powerful country. And here's why. Everybody wants to tackle the guy with the football. The reason China was subjected to the opium wars and so many other wars for so long is because they were the wealthiest country on the planet. You don't want to be that guy. You want to be number 2 or 3. You're still living well. You're having a great time, but you're not the guy with the football. You're not the guy that everybody wants to tackle. You're in a great spot, but you're not the number 1 target. And so I want to get the U.S. out of that. I want to bring things home. I want to have more focus on domestic policy and how we can do things better for our people here without being the world's policeman, without being Israel's auxiliary army, if you will.
Well, let's jump to the quick on that. How is this American political election going to go to do or influence what you're saying? How is this American election from this point forward going to go and do that? Are they going to remove Kamala Harris and this Waltz guy and replace her with Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama by assassinating them? Are they going to replace Trump by throwing him in jail and assassinating him? How do you see this happening in between now and November?
Well, I put nothing above them. I'm pretty confident that this judge in New York, what's his name, Merchan, I'm pretty confident that he's going to sentence Trump to prison time and put him in some shithole like Rikers Island where they'll have someone, hey, you get rid of this guy, you're out tomorrow. Don't worry about it. You wipe your slate clean, new identity, new social security number, you're golden. Well, the guy will kill Trump, but they'll kill him too because they don't want any witnesses, So
that's right. That's right.
They'll kill anybody who had any knowledge of it. Even the prison guards who enabled it will all be wiped out and killed. That's what I suspect may happen there. Now, the question is Trump going to be allowed to keep his Secret Service contingent in there? And can Trump trust the Secret Service? I don't think so. The recent assassination attempt showed how inept they were. What are they going to do? Send those fat, uncoordinated girls in the prison with them to protect them from the inmates? I don't think so. Now, as far as Kamala Harris and this guy Walz, I have no idea. Their convention is coming up next week, and let's see what happens there, because I'm expecting the Chicago Convention to be worse than 1968. I'm
Yes.
expecting more violence. I'm expecting more bloodshed. I'm expecting utter pandemonium in the streets. I mean, really, yeah, I'm expecting large-scale violence that will make Black Lives Matter in Minnesota look like nothing. So
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know about that. Is Kamala Harris fit to be president? No. Is this guy Walz fit to be
But
president?
she's not qualified to be president. Once again,
No, I
she's
know.
not qualified because she's not a natural born citizen. She doesn't have
Well,
both parents being an American
well,
citizen when she was born. She was
well,
born and she was naturalized, but she's not natural born, so she's unqualified. Therefore, that can be challenged in court, and it would go to Mike Johnson. That's why I'm presuming they're going to play a musical chairs and change her out by an assassination to blame it on a Trump supporter, because they could lose that argument in court. Something funny is going to happen.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but we did have a comment. Actually, we had several comments from last week about that. And some of the listeners are debating your point about her being naturalized or not.
Well, let me just clear that up. Let me just clear this up. I'm not. This isn't Scott Bennett talking. I've talked with this constitutional attorney, Stephen Pidgeon, and others. The simplest fact is, Kamala Harris was born in Oakland, but her parents were not American citizens. Therefore, her parents were not under the jurisdiction of American law. So she was naturalized. She was an anchor baby, which I think is unconstitutional. But she was born here, but she was not under the jurisdiction at the time of her birth because her parents weren't American. That's where it gets different, folks. So because of that, she's not qualified to be president. She can be vice president. She can be Secretary of Defense, but she can't be president because that is what natural born is, and she's not natural born. So I'll end it there and say that's the discrepancy that has never been adjudicated. And don't give me the about Barack Obama's birth certificate. That's a different silo. That's a different game altogether. That's a fake American birth certificate. She's got a real birth certificate, allegedly being from Oakland, but her parents were not Americans. Barack Obama's mother was an American woman, and Stephen Pidgeon has said the father actually has to be the American for the child to be natural born. But Mike, go ahead.
Well, you brought something up here, and that is this whole 14th Amendment that they give this anchor baby status to. If you're born in this country, you're a citizen. That really needs to be adjudicated, because when they have birth tourism, where Chinese women are coming over to the U.S. 2 weeks before they're due, staying a month, giving birth, and then now that kid's a citizen, can bring all the Chinese relatives with them. This needs to be addressed, and it's never been adjudicated by the Supreme Court. It needs to be looked at. And all of these anchor babies from Mexico and everywhere else, they need to go back home, because the Mexican Constitution states that no matter where a child is born, if either one of its parents are Mexican, their Constitution says this, and their Constitution states it has priority over other constitutions. Mm-hmm. And so it states that child shall be deemed a Mexican citizen. So now, do we have all these sons and daughters of illegal aliens who are dual Mexican U.S. citizens? Do we have that problem to contend with? Well, the way to fix that is to withdraw their U.S. citizenship, and that's a done deal. But that needs to be looked at by the Supreme Court when they get time. Anyway, we're getting a little long here, Scott, so I gotta wrap this up.
Well, let me just say, what you're describing and the political challenges, what we're facing with all of this stuff, it suddenly puts me into the visual of the American people and the American government, present company excluded, but the American people and the American public remind me of South Park, the South Park cartoon, with the fat, inept, retard, little rascal, two-dimensional cartoons. That's what the American people and the American government have become. Two-dimensional cartoons that is a result of the COVID-19 and 50 years of liberal, leftist, Democrat, atheistic, Jewish homosexualization of the schools, demasculinization of the schools, getting rid of the Boy Scouts, encouraging mothers to divorce and break up the family, and then try and castrate their sons and little girls and say it's your right That's the delusion that has incrementally come upon the United States, and it's quickening in its depth of depravity because of the evil that we have brought upon the other nations of the world, and present company excluded. But Michael, I'll give you the last 30 seconds.
Well, Scott, first of all, let me say something I say often, and that is, we have no problems we can't fix. We just have to have the political will to overcome those who are trying to take us down this path. Yeah. And so far, we've not exhibited that. Part of it is they've been waging an asymmetrical war against the American people since before they killed Kennedy. Okay, and like I said, watch that Mike King, Ron Partain on Untold History about the Kennedy curse, because it explains it in there. It explains why Bobby was killed. It's quite good. But we can fix every problem we have in front of us. We don't need illegal aliens here. We don't need their kids here. They're a burden to us. I mean, they don't help us. I understand why corporations wanted to hire illegal aliens. I get it. They're a better quality worker, and they've got a word. They're more motivated. They work harder than the blacks do. But if you're going to hire them, you got to pay the blacks and the Mexicans the same. It's the minimum wage laws. So, are you going to hire the less capable, less motivated worker? You're going to hire the more motivated, more capable worker. And that's really that was one of the arguments to allowing illegal immigration to go on. But it's time to fix this, because we don't need this. We have no problems we can't fix. I'll just leave it at that. I can go on for hours about this, but I'll spare the people.
So next time we will join you again and do hours of conversation on this on Great Awakenings. We are always ever honored to have Mike Harris. Thank you, Mike, for joining us, and thank you, Tom, for being our producer. We will see you next time. God bless you. Good night.